All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we are going to talk about Errol Spence Jr. exposing Sebastian Fundora, or the critics of Errol Spence Jr. and his fight over Carlos Ocampo, and also JERMELL Charlo, and a guy named that goes by the name of Carlos Adames. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back. Let's talk this boxing. Last night, some very, very entertaining fights took place on Showtime, which shed some light on, I think, on the skill set and the status of other fighters in the divisions between 147 pounds and 160 pounds. Errol Spence Jr. took to Twitter last night and said, man, going to war with Carlos Ocampo. Now, for me, being somebody that has been paying attention to Errol Spence Jr., JERMELL Charlo, and Fundora, I think that these fights last night were eye-openers to a certain degree. Now, before I get into that, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, please accept my invitation to hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. Also, if you are a longtime subscriber, supporter of the channel, thank you so much for your continued support. It really, really does mean a lot. Now, let's get into this. All right, so Errol Spence Jr. is cracking a joke on Sebastian Fundora about going to war with Carlos Ocampo. Now, just last night, Sebastian Fundora, who I do believe is in line to be the WBC mandatory, at least that's what he said, even though I could have sworn that there was another guy who was already the WBC mandatory, a guy for JERMELL Charlo's title at 154 pounds. Right, it was like a Russian guy, so like a Eastern European name. However, Sebastian Fundora is somebody that is, really quickly climbing up the ranks of the 154-pound division, and he fought a guy, Carlos Ocampo. And in the last time that we saw Carlos Ocampo at 147 pounds. Now, maybe this is the last time I saw him. I know that he's had several fights since that. That was several years ago. Saw him getting knocked out with two very vicious body shots at the end of the first round in I think it was the Dallas Armory, but the practice facility for the Dallas Cowboys against Errol Spence Jr. Pretty much ever since then, people when they talk about Errol Spence Jr.'s wins, never really give him any credit for Carlos Ocampo. They treat Carlos Ocampo as he's just somebody, that he's just some bum that he beat up. Right now, that story is either going to shift one way or the other after that fight with Sebastian Fundora. Now, remember, Sebastian Fundora is a 6'5", almost 6'6". I don't remember if he's 6'5" or 6'6", 154 pounder. He's not at 147 pounds. He's at 154 pounds. And he's a guy that just stopped Erickson Lubin at that division, is the guy that a lot of people are saying is, the best up and coming 154 pounder, who just went 12 rounds with Sebastian Fundora, and who just went 12 rounds with Carlos Ocampo. Now, a fight that he won, but not something where, his volume of punches or the shots that he was landing, a whole bunch of shots to the chin, affected Carlos Ocampo like the fight that Errol Spence Jr. had. Now, clearly, I don't like to do like a lot of people try to get you into do these triangle theories in boxing, but to the extent that people treated Carlos Ocampo like he was some scrub when he got in the ring with Errol, and the win doesn't mean anything, I think that goes away. Or either that, or Carlos Ocampo is a scrub, and this points to a problem that stands there with Sebastian Fundora, as Sebastian Fundora tries to fight JERMELL Charlo, the undisputed champion at 154 pounds, which eventually, if JERMELL stays there long enough and Sebastian Fundora stays there long enough, that fight would happen. Also, you have Sebastian Fundora right there at that weight class for any guy that may be trying to move up from 147 pounds into 154, like Errol Spence Jr., like Terrence Crawford. Danny Garcia is there as well. But obviously, you know, Sebastian Fundora has a very, very big advantage in his height, right? But clearly, either this is a bad win for it could either be considered a bad win for Sebastian Fundora because he's supposed to be able to get Carlos Ocampo out of there, or people need to be giving Errol Spence Jr. a little bit more credit for having done Carlos Ocampo like he did him when he fought Carlos Ocampo a couple years ago. Now, there's another fight on that undercard as well, where people are going to try to point to the same thing, which is the fight with Carlos Adames, and how Carlos Adames blew through Montiel, a guy that in the fight before last. His fight before last went the distance with JERMELL Charlo at 160 pounds. So after the fight, Carlos Adames is calling out Jermall Charlo and saying how he wants to fight with Jermall Charlo. I'm going to tell you, man, be very, very careful what you ask for. I think a lot of the problems that Montiel had with Carlos Adames had to do with Carlos Adames being a southpaw and him not really being able to adjust very well to that awkward stance, right? Where that wasn't the situation with Jermall Charlo. However, if that's the fight that they make, I would not mind seeing it at all. I would not, honestly, man, I wouldn't go so far as to say that Carlos Adames has much of a shot with Jermall Charlo. I don't care how that fight turned out, because I've already seen Carlos Adames lose. And Carlos Adames, I do believe, is a guy that came up. I believe he's originally at 140 and now 147, excuse me. I remember he was at 147 because he was going to be set up with a fight. I think he was in line to fight Igis Kalvanakis at 147. Then he moved to 154 and now he's at 150, 160. So he may be feeling a little bit stronger at that weight class, but still, if he fights Jermall Charlo, I would still say Jermall Charlo most definitely will get that win over Carlos Adames, but most definitely be a good fight to make. So, all in all, with that fight card last night, I mean, I really did. I did enjoy it. However, I wish people would now start giving a little bit more credit to people who have lost previous fights just because they were undefeated fighters. You never seen them fight before. Doesn't mean that they can't fight. It doesn't mean that you should dismiss that win. As far as Sebastian Fundora, though, I think Sebastian Fundora is going to be very, very difficult for anybody to beat because of his size. And because you're going to, with that length that he has, you have to get on the inside you have to get on the inside in order to beat him. And he's a really big guy. He's a very, very tall guy that likes to fight on the inside with those uppercuts. So that's just going to be real, real difficult, but entertaining to see what happens at 154 because, man, 154 for several years has just been a very, very deep division, not just a top. It's got a lot of talent at the top, but it's also got a lot of talent down, the further you go down the rankings. Just like 147 pounds, it had a lot of talent at the top and was kind of thin the further you go down there. But with him there and these guys moving up to 154, it's just going to be real interesting over the next couple of years. Anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.